Welcome to Bible Quizzes. Today's questions are all about the deaths in the Bible. Are you ready? Let's begin. Round 1, true or false? 1 point each. 1. Eli, the high priest of Israel, was killed by the sword. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. 1 Samuel 4:18. Then it happened when he made mention of the ark of God that Eli fell off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken and he died. For the man was old and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. 2. No one knew where Moses' grave was. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Deuteronomy 34:5-6. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no one knows his grave to this day. 3. Samson killed more men in his suicidal death than during his lifetime. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Judges 16:30. Then Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on all the people who were in it. So the dead that he killed at his death were more than he had killed in his life. 4. The Israelites killed Balaam the soothsayer. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Joshua 13:22. The children of Israel also killed with the sword Balaam the son of Beor, the soothsayer, among those who were killed by them. 5. Rachel died due to old age. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Genesis 35:18. And so it was, as her soul was departing, that she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. 6. Joshua killed the 5 kings who were hiding in a cave and hanged them on 5 trees. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Joshua 10:17-26. And it was told Joshua, saying, "The 5 kings have been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah." And afterward Joshua struck them and killed them and hanged them on the 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees. 7. According to biblical records, Abel was the first man to die. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Genesis 4:8. Now Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. 8. King Saul attempted suicide. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. 1 Chronicles 10:4. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised men come and abuse me." But his armor-bearer would not. Then Saul took a sword and fell on it. 9. Balaam killed his donkey after it spoke to him. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Balaam did not kill his donkey, he only threatened it. Numbers 22:29. And Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have abused me, I wish there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you." 10. Solomon killed his half-brother Adonijah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. 1 Kings 2:4. Now therefore, as the Lord lives, who has confirmed me and set me on the throne of David my father, Adonijah shall be put to death today. So King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah, and he struck him down, and he died. 11. Sisera was killed by a tent peg that was hammered through his head by a woman. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Judges 4:21. Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to Sisera and drove the peg into his temple, and it went down into the ground, for he was fast asleep and weary, so he died. 12. Samson killed 10,000 people with a donkey's jawbone. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Samson killed 1,000 men with a jawbone, not 10,000. Judges 15:15. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand and took it and killed 1,000 men with it. 13. Enoch died in a good old age. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Enoch did not die, he was taken by God. Hebrews 11:5. By faith, Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. 14. A Levite man cut his concubine to pieces because she was defiled. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Judges 19:25 and 29. So the man took his concubine and brought her out to them, and they knew her and abused her all night until morning. When he entered his house, he took a knife, laid hold of his concubine, and divided her into 12 pieces. 15. Elisha's bones raised a man back to life when he was thrown in his tomb. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. 2 Kings 13:21. So it was as they were burying a man that suddenly they spied a band of raiders, and they put the man in the tomb of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood on his feet. 16. Jacob was buried in Egypt inside a pyramid. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Genesis 50:13. For his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, which Abraham bought with a field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial place. 17. Abraham sacrificed his son Isaac on Mount Moriah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Genesis 22:13. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. 18. The firstborns of Egyptian cattle were also killed during the Passover event. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Exodus 12:29. And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of livestock. 19. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego died in the furnace. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is false. Daniel 3:27. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men, on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected. 20. The people who threw Shadrach and his friends into the furnace were killed by the heat. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is true. Daniel 3:22. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And that ends round 1. Round 2, multiple choice, 2 points each. Let's begin. 21. Which tribe of Israel faced their annihilation through genocide? Reuben, Judah, Ephraim, Benjamin. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Benjamin. The Israelites fought against the tribe of Benjamin in Judges 21, Judges 21:17, and they said there must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe may not be destroyed from Israel. 22. How many priests did Saul execute under his command? 100, 85, 72, 24. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 85. 1 Samuel 22:18. And the king said to Doeg, You turn and kill the priests. So Doeg the Edomite turned and struck the priests, and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. 23. Who sacrificed his daughter as a burnt offering to the Lord due to a vow? Jephthah, Jehu, Jabez, Joab. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jephthah. Judges 11:35. And when he, Jephthah, saw her, he tore his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low. You are among those who trouble me, for I have given my word to the Lord, and I cannot go back on it. 24. Why was Achan stoned to death under Joshua's command? He had killed someone. He hid things God had said should be destroyed. He led others into idolatry. He defiled the altar of the Lord. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, he hid things God had said should be destroyed. Joshua 7:20. And Achan answered Joshua and said, Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, when I saw among the spoils a beautiful Babylonian garment and 200 shekels of silver. I coveted them and took them. 25. How did Samuel kill King Agag whom Saul had spared? He hanged him. He commanded people to stone him. He hacked him in pieces. He burned him alive. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, he hacked him in pieces. 1 Samuel 15:33. But Samuel said, As your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And Samuel hacked Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. 26. Who was the man whom King David stole his wife and later had him killed? Uriah, Uzzah, Uzziah, Ahaziah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Uriah. 2 Samuel 12:10. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. 27. How was Haman, Mordecai's enemy, killed? He was killed by the sword. He was hanged on the gallows. He was thrown in a furnace. He was stoned to death. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, he was hanged on the gallows. Esther 7:10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. 28. Which of David's sons was killed by his brother Absalom for defiling their sister? Amnon, Adonijah, Amos, Asahel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Amnon, 2 Samuel 13:32. Then Jonadab said, "Let not my lord suppose they have killed all the young men, the king's sons, for only Amnon is dead. For by the command of Absalom this has been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar." 29. Which king of Israel died as a leper due to arrogance and offering incense to God? King Josiah, King Hezekiah, King Asa, King Uzziah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is King Uzziah, 2 Chronicles 26:20. And Azariah looked at him, and there on his forehead he was leprous. They thrust him out of that place. Indeed, he also hurried to get out, because the Lord had struck him. King Uzziah was a leper until the day of his death. 30. Who led other people to rebellion, causing the earth to swallow them alive? Nadab, Merari, Kohath, Korah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Korah, number 1632. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the men with Korah with all their goods. 31. How did God kill the Israelites who lusted after meat in the wilderness? He consumed them with fire. He commanded people to stone them. He struck them with a plague. He struck them with a thunder. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, he struck them with a plague, Numbers 11:33. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very great plague. 32. Which prophet of Israel was murdered between the temple and the altar? Zechariah, Ezekiel, Amos, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah, Matthew 23:35. That on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. 33. Which couple died for deceiving the Holy Spirit about the amount they sold land for? Priscilla and Aquila, Ananias and Sapphira, Lydia and Claudia, Cornelius and Tabitha. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ananias and Sapphira, Acts 5:1. But a certain man named Ananias, with Sapphira his wife, sold a possession, and he kept back part of the proceeds, his wife also being aware of it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. 34. How many young people were killed by two female bears for mocking Elisha's bald head? 38, 40, 42, 22. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 42, 2 Kings 2:24. So he turned around and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of the Lord. And two female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the youths. 35. Which prophet was responsible for executing the false prophets of Baal? Elisha, Elijah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer.
The answer is Elijah, 1 Kings 18:40. And Elijah said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal, do not let one of them escape." So they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and executed them there. 36. Who died after falling off a building while sleeping during Paul's preaching? Cornelius, Eutychus, Nymphas, Aquila. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Eutychus, Acts 29. And in a window sat a certain young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep. He was overcome by sleep, and as Paul continued speaking, he fell down from the third story and was taken up dead. 37. Who died from being consumed by worms alive? Herod, Caiaphas, Pilate, Annas. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Herod. Acts 12:21. So on a set day, Herod gave an oration to them, and the people kept shouting, "The voice of a God and not of a man." Then immediately an angel struck him because he did not give glory to God, and he was eaten by worms and died. 38. Which king of Israel died due to a severe foot disease? Joash, Josiah, Asa, Zedekiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Asa. 2 Chronicles 16:12. And in the 39th year of his reign, Asa became diseased in his feet, and his malady was severe. Yet in his disease he did not seek the Lord, but the physicians. 39. Which prophet prophesied that dogs would lick Ahab's and Jezebel's blood? Elijah, Jehu, Elisha, Nathan. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah. 1 Kings 21:17-19. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who lives in Samaria. You shall speak to him, saying, In the place where dogs licked the blood of Naboth, dogs shall lick your blood. 40. How many spears did Joab pierce through Absalom, David's son? 5, 3, 2, 6. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 3. 2 Samuel 18:14. Then Joab said, I cannot linger with you, and he took 3 spears in his hand and thrust them through Absalom's heart while he was still alive in the midst of the terebinth tree. 41. Who killed James, the brother of John? Pilate, Annas, Herod, Caiaphas. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Herod. Acts 12:1-2. Now about that time Herod the king stretched out his hand to harass some from the church. Then he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. 42. How was Stephen the martyr killed? He was burned, he was hanged, he was stoned, he was crucified. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, he was stoned. Acts 7:59-60. And they stoned Stephen as he was calling on God and saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Then he knelt down and cried out with a loud voice, Lord, do not charge them with this sin. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. 43. How many Israelites died in the plague of God because David conducted an illegal census? 70,000, 17,000, 27,000, 7,000. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 70,000. 2 Samuel 24:14-15. And David said to God, I am in great distress. Please let us fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great. So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel. From Dan to Beersheba, 70,000 men of the people died. 44. Whom did Joab kill by cutting out his intestines? Abiathar, Amasai, Azariah, Amasa. You have 10 seconds to answer.
The answer is Amasa. 2 Samuel 20:10. But Amasa did not notice the sword that was in Joab's hand, and he struck him with it in the stomach, and his entrails poured out on the ground, and he did not strike him again. Thus he died. 45. Who was killed by God for trying to support the Ark of the Covenant when it stumbled? Uzziah, Uzzah, Uzi, Azariah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Uzzah. 2 Samuel 6:6-7. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, where the oxen stumbled. Then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him, and he died. 46. Which king of Israel used a medium to summon the spirit of Samuel from the dead? David, Saul, Solomon, Josiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Saul. 1 Samuel 28:12-13. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice, and the woman spoke to Saul, saying, Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul. And the woman said to Saul, I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth. 47. Where was Samuel buried after he died? In Bethany, in Gilead, in Jerusalem, in Ramah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is in Ramah. 1 Samuel 25:1. Then Samuel died, and the Israelites gathered together and lamented for him, and buried him at his home in Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. 48. How did Nadab and Abihu die after burning strange fire before the Lord? God's fire killed them. Thunder struck them. They were hanged. They were stoned. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is God's fire killed them. Leviticus 10:1-2. Then Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it, put incense on it, and offered profane fire before the Lord. So fire went out from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. 49. Why did Moses kill the Egyptian and hide him in the sand? To defend the Hebrew, for self-defense. Out of anger, God told him to do so. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is to defend a Hebrew. Exodus 2:11-12. When Moses was grown, he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. So he looked around, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. 50. Who among Judah's sons did God kill for emitting his seeds on the ground? Perez, Boaz, Onan, Huz. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Onan. Genesis 38:9-10. But Onan knew that the ear would not be his, and when he went in to his brother's wife, he emitted on the ground, lest he should give an ear to his brother, and the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore he killed him also. 51. Which of Jacob's sons killed all the men in the city for vengeance? Reuben and Judah, Simeon and Levi, Dan and Zebulun, Gad and Joseph. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Simeon and Levi. Genesis 34:25. Now it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. 52. Which prophet was told by God that his wife would die and he shouldn't mourn her? Elijah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Amos, you have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 24:16 and 18. Behold, I take away from you the desire of your eyes with one stroke, yet you shall neither mourn nor weep. So I spoke to the people in the morning, and at evening my wife died, and the next morning I did as I was commanded. 53. Which king was struck by a strange disease for 2 years until his intestines came out? Jehoram, Jehoahaz, Jeroboam, Jerubbaal. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jehoram. 1 Chronicles 21:19. Then it happened in the course of time after the end of 2 years that Jehoram's intestines came out because of his sickness, so he died in severe pain. 54. Who killed Eglon, king of Moab, with a dagger thrust into his belly? Ehud, Zimri, Joab, Jehu. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ehud. Judges 3:21. Then Ehud reached with his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. 55. Who was killed by a woman who crushed his head with a millstone? Elimelech, Melchizedek, Abimelech, Jonadab. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Abimelech. Judges 9:53. But a certain woman dropped an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. 56. Who conspired against Naboth to be stoned so she could steal his vineyard? Athaliah, Zerah, Delilah, Jezebel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jezebel. 1 Kings 21:15. And it came to pass when Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money. 57. Who shot the spear that killed King Ahab? The king of Moab, Zedekiah, Saul's armor-bearer, a random man. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is a random man. 1 Kings 22:34. Now a certain man drew a bow at random and struck the king of Israel between the joints of his armor. So he said to the driver of his chariot, Turn around and take me out of the battle, for I am wounded. 58. Which king sacrificed his son as a burnt offering to stop the war against the Israelites? The king of Moab, the king of Assyria, the king of Midian, the king of Egypt. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is the king of Moab. 2 Kings 3:26. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too fierce for him, he took his eldest son and offered him as a burnt offering. And there was great indignation against Israel, so they departed from him and returned to their land. 59. Which people killed Jonathan, Saul's son? The Amorites, the Amalekites, the Philistines, the Moabites. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is the Philistines. 1 Samuel 31:2. Then the Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, Saul's sons. 60. What action did the Israelites need to take to avoid death after being bitten by poisonous snakes? Touch the bronze snake. Kneel before the bronze snake. Look at the bronze snake. Speak to the bronze snake. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is look at the bronze snake. Numbers 21:9. So Moses made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole, and so it was if a serpent had bitten anyone. When he looked at the bronze snake, he lived. And that ends round 2. Round 3. Short answer, 3 points each. Let's begin. 61. What happened to the man who conspired against Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is they were eaten by lions. Daniel 6:24. And the king gave the command, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives, and the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones. 62. Who raised back to life the son of the widow of Nain? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jesus. Luke 7:11-13. Now it happened that he, Jesus, went into a city called Nain, and when he came near the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. 63. Who was the woman that was raised by Peter because of her kindness to widows? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Dorcas or Tabitha. Acts 9:39-40. Then Peter arose and went with them. They brought him to the upper room, and all the widows stood by him weeping, showing the tunics and garments which Dorcas had made while she was with them. 64. How many children did Job lose in a day? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters, all of whom died in a day. The number of his children is recorded in verse 2 of chapter 1, while the deaths are recorded in verse 18 of chapter 1. 65. Which prophet was taken up to heaven without experiencing death? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah, 2 Kings 2:11. Then it happened as they continued on and talked that suddenly a chariot of fire appeared with horses of fire and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. 66. Who among Jesus' disciples hanged himself? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judas. Matthew 27:3-5. Then Judas, his betrayer, seeing that he had been condemned, was remorseful and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, and departed and went and hanged himself. 67. Which prophet asked God to take his life because he was discouraged? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah. 1 Kings 19:4. But he, Elijah, went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he prayed that he might die and said, "It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers." 68. Which prophet prophesied the death of the infant born to David and Bathsheba? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nathan, 2 Samuel 12:13-14. And Nathan said to David, "The Lord also has put away your sin. However, because by this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also who is born to you shall surely die." 69. How did Queen Jezebel die? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is she was thrown off a building. 2 Kings 9:33. Then he said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood spattered on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. 70. Which woman killed the heirs to the throne so she could rule? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Athaliah. 2 Kings 11 1-3. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal heirs. But Joash was hidden in the house of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the land. 71. Which false prophet died for breaking the yoke of Jeremiah? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hananiah. Jeremiah 28:15. Then the prophet Jeremiah said to Hananiah the prophet, "Hear now, Hananiah, thus says the Lord, Behold, I will cast you from the face of the earth. This year you shall die because you have taught rebellion." 72. How did Lazarus, the brother to Martha and Mary, die? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is, he died from sickness. John 11 5-14. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. Then Jesus said to them plainly, "Lazarus is dead." 73. Which prophet raised the son of the Shunammite woman? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elisha. 2 Kings 4:35. He, Elisha, went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. He called Gehazi and said, "Call this Shunammite woman." So he called her and he said to her, "Pick up your son." 74. Which high priest in Israel killed a couple caught in fornication with a javelin? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Phinehas. Numbers 25:7-8. Now when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he took a javelin and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her body. 75. Who sacrificed his 2 sons to rebuild the city of Jericho? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hiel. 1 Kings 16:34. In his days, Hiel of Bethel built Jericho. He laid its foundation with Abiram his firstborn, and with his youngest son Segub he set up its gates, according to the word of the Lord, which he had spoken through Joshua the son of Nun. 76. How many Philistines did David kill and take their foreskins as a dowry? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 200. 1 Samuel 18:27. Therefore David arose and went, he and his men, and killed 200 men of the Philistines. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full count to the king, that he might become the king's son-in-law. 77. Which of David's mighty men killed 800 people in a single encounter? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Josheb-Basshebeth. These are the names of the mighty men whom David had. Josheb-Basshebeth the Tachmonite, chief among the captains. He was called Adino the Eznite because he had killed 800 men at one time. 78. What was the name of David's advisor who hanged himself when his advice wasn't followed? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ahithophel. 2 Samuel 17:23. Now when Ahithophel saw that his advice was not followed, he saddled a donkey and arose and went home to his house to his city. Then he put his household in order and hanged himself and died. 79. Which prophet commanded fire to consume the people that were sent by the king to call him? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah. 2 Kings 1:10. So Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, If I am a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50 men. And fire came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. And number 80. How did Elisha die? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is from an illness. 2 Kings 13:14. Elisha had become sick with the illness of which he would die. Then Joash, the king of Israel, came down to him and wept over his face and said, O my father, the chariots of Israel and their horsemen. And that's all we have for you today. How well did you do? Tally your score and post in the comment section below. Share this quiz with your friends and family. We hope to see you in the next one. God bless.